Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron?
You done messed up, Aaron!
The intro really does crack me up every time.
It really does.
It really
I
does.
was noticing that.
It really does. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
We've been doing these live streams as vertical cell phone live streams, just as a little bit of an experiment on how to do this casually and naturally and without putting too much fuss into it and to make it easier to actually get videos done. And today we decided to switch it up. We are doing this through StreamYard. Going to be able to star comments. That's actually because we're going to have a fun conversation that I thought I would really like other people's input on, especially other ex-Scientologists. And so just doing it vertical from the phone wasn't going to work because it's impossible to even keep track of comments, much less star them or anything like that. And everybody say hi, Jenna.
Oh, hi, everybody.
Jenna got here yesterday. And we are sharing the mic, so just let us know if the sound seems fine.
Oh, okay.
We won't fight over it. No, don't go closer to it, because then we'll be fighting for it like this. Okay. Go ahead, do it.
I don't.
Or keeping it here is probably better than trying to be like.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. I agree. You just talk so much louder than me.
Yeah, well, you talk quietly in videos, but you talk loudly in real life.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I don't think I talk loudly in real life.
Oh, okay.
All right. I didn't know that it was actually different. I thought I just talked quietly and that you talked extraordinarily loudly.
Mm-mm. I do talk loudly, though.
Both in videos and real life.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's say hi to some folks. Let's see. Hey, Constance, June, good to see you. Kimberly, I've already said hi to a bunch of people in the chat. Rio for life, Kim D, good to see you. Anna Marusek, welcome. Good buddy, never in, Cassie, and failed pessimist, good to see you. There's Eat More Pizza. Elron Liar, hey there. Dave's Deep Dives, always good to see you. Hi, Susie. Hi, Karen. Hi, Sierra. John Shamwowski. Good to see you, John.
Okay, I think the mosquito did just bite me.
I'm telling, they're mosquitoes. Yeah. Yes, you guys. I don't know if you can see them, but we're gonna be like going like this. That's the other downside to doing it out here. Yep. See, they're going crazy. They're going nuts. Okay, so the inspiration for the chat is talking about what are the forces that either push or pull people out of Scientology. And when people get out of Scientology, is it more because of various push forces coming from the inside out, or is it more pull forces, things outside that are attracting or enticing or causing people to decide that they'd rather leave? Leaving is the best choice.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And whatever people think are the more dominant forces there, are they stronger today than in the past?
Mm-hmm.
And is it harder to get people out of Scientology today than in the past? Is it harder? The process, does it take more? Right. Does it take more of the push and the pull force to get someone to leave Scientology today than it did in the past?
Yeah.
I just think it's a fascinating subject, and there's so many different
yeah.
arguments that could be made about it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that, like, in Scientology, the worse you get treated, the more likely you are to leave. And so in some ways, like, the outside forces talking about Scientology, how horrible it is to be there, and then they change certain things, or they pretend change certain things, like maybe they do or don't cancel the RPF, but, you know, like certain court cases make it so instead of forcing people to have abortions, they allow them to leave the Seorg. It's like interesting, the outside forces can make things not as bad for people there, which can in some ways make it less likely for them to leave. I don't know, though.
That is an interesting point.
Yeah.
Like, if the outside forces, and that's almost a different type of outside force. Mm-hmm. That's just like out external forces putting pressure on Scientology. Mm-hmm. And then they maybe change some things that make it a little more palatable to continue to be a Scientologist.
Right.
And so perhaps that makes them more likely to stay in longer.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So, like, there's no cadet org They're
Yeah.
supposedly not an RPF, although they could just have changed the name to something else.
Yeah.
You know, people in the Seorg can have babies now if they leave, potentially.
Well, they could always have babies if they leave.
Right, but maybe they're like allow them to leave now.
Oh, it's easier
Like,
to leave.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where
right.
rather than putting more pressure on abortions. I mean, I don't actually know. I'm not there anymore, but it seems like that there was less pressure
Yeah.
on that later on, and so it's kind of interesting. It's like you want it to get better because you don't want Scientology to be horrible, but then there's also less incentive for people to leave. But I guess, like, I believe it's the perfect marriage of both that eventually like got me to leave.
Mm.
It's like my parents were out and they were telling me things that I wouldn't have heard otherwise, that things that were happening at like Scientology's international management base that I only heard from the outside. And then the combination of it being so horrible and evil in there, where they were just like taking away like things that they didn't have to.
Like snacks.
Yeah.
Snacks and cell phones.
Yeah, I know I always talk about snacks and how it was like the
Can't go back
last
that far.
straw, but the point is that it was something that they really didn't need to take away from people. Like we would be buying snacks with our own money, which was like $15, and we had so little money. We also had to pay for toilet paper, laundry, and then when you paid in shampoo and all of that. And so that when you spent the little money you had on their canteen where they marked up the prices 3 times, then they would make you throw them away. There's no reason for that besides evil. There's no reason for that besides evil. Anyways,
Oh, is my little hood stuck in the back of my shirt? No wonder it felt so tight. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
anyways, that's why all of my videos wind up being that
The snacks.
left Scientology, because they wouldn't let me have snacks in my drawer.
That's why John's always sending you snacks.
That's true.
Snacks are a very important part of the story.
I feel like I only now just articulated why it always comes down to snacks, but
Yeah.
it just seems like I spend an inordinate amount of time talking about snacks.
Yeah.
And
Well, then, of course, like them trying to take away your cell phone when your dad specifically sent you that cell phone and said, don't let them take away your phone.
yeah,
That
right.
you did a video about that recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except it was Dallas's phone.
Oh.
But my dad said not to let them take it away. Yeah. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, when I think of an inside force or a push force,
Mhm.
I think I'm really talking about things just happening inside the world of Scientology
Mhm.
that are so unjust
Mhm.
or abusive or destructive to a person
Mhm.
that they feel like, yeah, I can't be a part of this anymore. That would be
Right.
like a push force. And there are ways over the last 10 or 15 years that things have been changed slightly in Scientology to try to make it perhaps, or at least pretend like they're making it some kinder, gentler, more reasonable version of Scientology. But I think the other thing that happens is Scientology keeps shrinking, and the demand in Scientology to keep stats up will never go away.
Right.
Like I hear this bullshit about, they're, Miscavige has decided to basically give up everywhere else, and he's circling the wagons in Clearwater, Florida, and he's just Scientology is just going to be in Clearwater in Los Angeles for an elite group of customers. And it's like there is no world in which the staff members in any of these orgs have been told it is okay to
Mhm.
not have their stats up.
Right. Yeah. That's actually
No-
a really good point.
Yeah, no one's been told, oh, it's okay to let your public go to flag, and we're going to take the pressure off of you to keep your stats up.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And as long as Scientology is shrinking, the more pressure there's going to be for people to work longer hours,
Exactly.
to give more,
Exactly.
to give more money,
Mhm.
to not report certain things because they only have the people they have.
That's right.
So it's almost that the stats
Yeah,
literally force it to be worse.
that's right.
Mhm.
And so, and if we look at the things that have been changed, which is, okay, getting rid of the RPF.
Mhm.
The RPF was the worst version of the Seorg Experience anyone could possibly have,
Mhm.
in my opinion. Well, I can think of some exceptions, but generally speaking, that life, especially if it's going on for 5-10 years, that's as
Yeah,
close to like a gulag prison camp you could possibly get in the United States.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting rid of that, to me, just makes sense as a straight PR move,
Right.
And yet all it does is put those people back into the Sea Org, which
Right.
already is not the best experience.
Right.
So it's not a drastic improvement to get rid of like the one fringe worst thing that existed.
right.
Doesn't actually change the entire landscape or complexion of Scientology. It's a good thing, but it's not like you're not making a huge stride there.
Right. And who knows if they're getting rid of it only in name or, what else they're doing. I mean, because the RPF was created by L. Ron Hubbard.
Right.
And so how do they excuse,
Right.
getting rid of it too?
Yes, right.
So I think that there's probably some version of it that just maybe deals with some other level of humiliation for the people who are on it. That's like almost even worse because they're getting like blamed for the bad PR that they would be potentially causing by being on the RPF.
Yeah. I see some start comments. I'll try to start some comments as I go.
Like maybe they don't let RPFers work outside,
Say that again?
Like maybe they don't call it the RPF and maybe they can't work outside where people can see them, or maybe they change uniforms when they go outside.
Right.
Who really knows?
Yeah. And so, but even if you get rid of the RPF, you still have all these people still stuck in the Sea Org.
Right. Yeah.
And then the whole thing about they no longer use like high pressure tactics to get people to terminate Sea Org members to terminate pregnancies. They'll still try to get you to change your mind, but generally speaking, they're going to let you leave the Sea Org without too much of a hassle.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't change the landscape of Scientology.
Right.
Really.
Right. Totally.
You know what I mean? And also, they made that change 20 years ago. When Heather and I were leaving the Sea Org, they all but rolled out the red carpet for us to get out of there. Because
I think it's different at different bases, though.
Very true.
Yeah. Like,
very true.
Like when I left Flag, it was still very much like that, which was, I guess it was like 5 years before I actually left. But at middle management where I was at, it was still very much
I think in LA, if we had tried to leave 5 years before we left, it probably would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, and you're leaving from PAC too. Yeah, and like just so like for instance, at the international management base, if you left the Sea Org, you were supposed to be declared a suppressive person.
No matter what.
Yes, yeah. So, but that wasn't the case at other Scientology, lower level Scientology churches, or even high level. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it does depend on which base you're at. Yeah.
And so those would be, but other push forces would be like, enforcing disconnection in a way that just doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. And so that's an example of a push force. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Or, a family member gets declared. It's totally unjust. Everyone has to disconnect. That would be an example of a push force. Like, we're not this. We never thought, we knew this was a policy, but we never thought it could happen to us or our family. We're not willing to experience this, so we're going to leave.
Yeah, right. Totally. Yeah. I mean, it seems like they're making more allowances, but also in some cases, they're choosing for it to be worse. Like they pick and choose who they allow to disconnect, like strategically.
The first time I ever heard of someone being secretly declared, I thought it was just someone was confused and someone was miscommunicating or misrepresenting it. But these secret declares have become more and more prevalent. And I have to even figure out why I'm bringing it up. But I feel like it's an example of them trying to change something in a way where they're still applying their policies of we're still going to declare you and we're still going to something. But we're going to tweak this thing because we don't want to lose your entire family. Right. We're going to let you speak to your family as long as you're working on your steps to get undeclared.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Is it a bug?
God.
Go ahead.
It's gone.
Oh.
But there was no way for me to get it without slapping you directly in the
next
face.
time, just slap me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, I see Erica in the chat, by the way. Where'd she go? Oh, definite trouble. So what? Aloha. This guy in the background looks painted. Yeah. I wonder how much the camera is actually doing it justice right now. Here, if we back out of the way, look at that. Look at totally. Look how beautiful it gets. Does look weird. Yes. Now it focuses on us. No, I mean, I gotta tell you, one of the most relaxing things about being here in Hawaii is just how absolutely gorgeous it is, no matter where you are.
It's true.
Like we're talking about driving a couple hours to go see one of the erupting volcanoes, and it's like driving 2 hours around this island is just as relaxing and comfortable as sitting here on the back patio, except the air conditioning is better in the car.
I like it better on the back patio.
Why?
Because I don't like air conditioning. It's too cold. I like it warm. This is perfect.
By the way, Erica's charges have been completely dropped. Did you see? I don't know if you saw that yesterday.
No, I didn't. Awesome.
Yeah, Erica was arrested the other week for standing in a place that the Clearwater police did not want her to be standing.
I knew that.
Yeah. But anyway, she was informed yesterday they dropped all of her charges, and
Awesome.
so now we'll see what comes next. Congratulations, Erica. Okay, so a pull force.
Oh.
Are there actually things that exist outside of Scientology that serve as like a pulling force to people in Scientology, where they're like, you know, they see it, they go, oh God, look at that wonderful life. I would want to live that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that there is.
Well, you and I guess are a bit different. Like I grew up inside the Seorg.
Mm-hmm.
So like the idea of me having my own house, being able to have kids, and being able to have my own car and wear whatever I wanted every day, that was a huge pull force for me. Something that I was like, felt like I was missing out on. Where maybe you felt like you could have that at any time.
Right.
But it was something that I never had. So that was a huge, I mean, that's like,
right.
I mean, you were also in the Seorg, so I'm not saying that wasn't a thing for you too, but maybe you felt like it was more of an option.
I'd already chosen to give that up to join the Seorg.
Yeah.
And I always knew that if and when I left this Seorg, I could go back to that no problem.
Right.
So it wasn't like something that was.
Yeah. So for me, it was something that I felt like was like that was never going to happen. That was like a totally alternate dream life that I had no part in the past.
So it didn't really serve as a pulling force.
No, it was
then.
a pull. That's why I'm saying it was a pull
okay.
to have a life where I can have my own house and my own car and like have a pet.
Oh, but I thought you were
kid.
saying, but no part of you thought that would ever be possible.
Yeah, but that's why it was like more attractive.
Oh.
What don't you understand?
Meaning you saw it there, but you thought I could never have that? Or because you grew up never even conceiving that you could have it, once you saw it, you were like, I want it.
I guess I was saying that it's a big pulling force for me at the time, but maybe it wasn't as much for you because you like, I don't know. It was, you thought that you could have it. I don't know. Was it a pulling force for you?
To leave the Seorg?
Yeah.
No.
Why not?
Because I'd already chosen to give that up to join the Seorg.
Okay, good. So that's the difference. That's why it wasn't a pulling force for you and it was for me. Anyways, I thought of another like pulling force.
What?
Well, no, I can't remember because all the mosquitoes and all these people staring right now.
We got Natalie and Lana out here now. I'm sure
Yeah,
George is
they're
making
facing
drinks,
us.
hopefully. Yeah. Well, they can also chime in whenever they want to.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Oh.
What are we talking about?
A pulling force to leave Scientology. Oh, this is the other one I thought of. Not wanting to be constantly regged for all the money you have is a huge pulling force not to be in Scientology. Oh.
Do we spray this in the air or on our
thank
skin?
you.
On your skin.
In your mouth.
I don't think they're succeeding in getting on my skin, but here I will spray my feet since that's what I'm most paranoid
Did you
about.
know that as a public Scientologist, they like lock public Scientologists in rooms and have told them you can't leave until you donate?
I believe that totally. Yeah.
It's definitely something I think pushes people out of Scientology is the demands on the money. Even the people who were the most dedicated Scientologists that I knew, they were still really upset about that.
Yeah.
The demands for, you're not just paying for services. Many of them were happy to pay for the services they did, but they didn't want to have to pay for all the added
books.
donations.
Yeah, donations and books. Yeah,
Exactly.
totally. Are you saying that would be a pushing force rather than a pulling force?
What would?
Like to not have to be asked for
Yes.
donations. I get it.
Totally.
I get it.
Totally. And that's an example why got us off on the tangent a little bit, which is that even as Scientology tries to possibly improve things for various reasons,
Yeah.
they're still putting greater and greater pressure on a smaller and smaller number of people, which brings it right back to all those things that
Right.
end up being pushing forces,
Yeah.
which is being locked in
Yeah.
a damn room and being told you're not leaving until you make this donation.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And then on the other side of that, like when I was at middle management after the events, we would stay at like the Shrine Auditorium all night until 9 a.m. the next morning, having to call anyone who we knew to make the book selling quota.
Right.
So it's like that's like pressure on the Seorg members that would push you out. And then also the pressures being put on the public. Like I remember we would call Dallas's parents and he would have to try to keep them on the phone like all night, and they'd be like, no. And so it's both. Nobody wants to be doing that.
Yeah, nobody wants to be there. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to be buying. Nobody wants to be selling. Nobody wants to be there.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is interesting because when it comes down to it, the only reason anyone's there is because they want to stay in contact with their family.
Are we sure this isn't mosquito food? I think it made it worse.
Where are the mosquitoes?
Oh my
See,
God.
I am a mosquito repellent.
They go to
Mosquitoes
him.
Don't.
Oh
bite
my
me.
Lord.
That's what you said.
Okay.
last
Cheryl,
time.
did you prank us?
Every time he sprays mosquito stuff on him, they eat him alive.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Cheryl's been trying to take us out one by one ever since we got
Uh-huh.
here.
With all her
First it was the
ointments
tea
and
tree
sprays.
oil.
The tea tree oil.
Then they tried to poison George with the frozen fish yesterday. Now it's the mosquito food.
I'll leave you guys to it.
Well, no, hold
Got
on.
this
We're not
for-
done yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you got a mic on.
Oh, I got my mic on from, I was doing an integration.
Oh, nice.
I know.
Nice.
Trying to get some actual work done.
So
Take
do
my mic
you think like I tend to, when people go, oh my God, what is it that makes, how do you get someone out of Scientology?
Yeah.
I generally have always said, look, there's nothing you can say or do to get someone out of Scientology. Everyone has their own point beyond which they're not willing to be pushed. They might not even know where that point is until it happens, where someone goes, I just can't continue to live like this or be treated like this or whatever. And I really have no choice. I'm not willing to continue to be a part of this or subject myself to this.
Yeah.
And that's generally, the way that I think about it.
Mm-hmm. It's just different for each person. That's what's so crazy. Is
Right.
What was my last straw may not be for somebody else.
Mhm.
Mosquito, I saw it.
Oh, that's not a
It
mosquito.
was a beetle thing
Yeah.
or something.
And I started to wonder if the whole YouTube thing, so many ex-Scientologists on YouTube,
Yeah.
so many conversations happening on YouTube about Scientology,
Mhm.
both by ex-Scientologists and by people who are never in, like Tommy G, for example.
Yeah.
If it has created, if there is now a force that maybe did not exist before,
Oh,
in
100%.
that actually, like if you are an under the radar Scientologist
Yeah.
or a Scientologist, and you stumble upon all these people
Mhm.
who before you would have been able to be convinced, oh, they're just evil bad SPs working for the Sykes and Big Pharma.
Right.
Mhm.
But you see, but wait a second, they seem exactly like the people I knew when they were in.
Right, exactly. I think when it's people who I think there is a recipe. I think it's not that there isn't anything you can do. I think you just have to do it in layers to get someone to
Mhm.
leave Scientology. They have to be pushed. I think they have to have a safe place on the outside is an added
Mhm.
benefit. Somebody who didn't put they can go to. And then I think that I remember there were certain people who I knew in Scientology who had left that were declared SPs, and I was like, they're not SPs. I already I don't care. And not only that, it's not even possible in Scientology terms for that percentage of people to be SPs.
Exactly. If it's
And
only
that was
supposed
a
to
big
be
part of it.
2.5% of the population.
Yeah.
There were 2 families that left Scientology when I left with my family. 3 generations of my family. 2 more families left in large part because of the lies they were told about me and my family. And they already had disagreements. They already weren't happy. They were already being mistreated.
Mhm.
One of them was a staff member. 2 of them were staff members. And it was just, that was for them, interestingly, that was the last straw. And I don't think it was just because, well, you're saying those lies about Natalie, so we're leaving. I think it was more Natalie, her husband, her mom. My mom was a
Right.
very dedicated Scientologist. So I think when they have somebody who they consider to be like a thought leader or opinion leader, then they're more likely to walk out the door. And I think that's what happened. And that's why Scientology works so hard to keep us away from people who
Mhm.
are still in.
Right.
because it's catchy.
Yes, exactly. It's catching. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And I think like also if they've had other experiences, like not just with you and your family, but there's this one other thing, and then this
Yeah.
one other thing, it
Mhm.
becomes like,
Yeah.
okay, this is ridiculous.
Almost like getting into Scientology. When you buy something, what is it in marketing? They say you need like 7 touch points. It used to be
Yeah.
3, and then the number keeps
Yeah.
going up. I think it's
Yeah.
the same way in leaving Scientology. You need
Yes.
kind of like multiple things to happen,
Yeah.
and then you go, okay.
And that was a good point about authority, because that also, like when I think about it, this is what happened to you. It was like all of those int execs speaking out in that Tampa Bay Times
Mhm.
article. Your mom had left. They were saying she was an SP. You obviously didn't want to be in the Seorg for whatever reason. So it's like multiple things that add to a
Yeah.
point where it's like, okay, no. I think it's push and pull
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I think it's both. And I think what you were saying about having so many people online, never in Scientology, but all in on ending the cult, is making a difference. Because think about it, like when I left Scientology, which Anonymous was going on,
Mhm.
that helped me feel
Everywhere.
more, one, like I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And secondly, like there would be support. Like I'm not alone in leaving Scientology. There's so many people that know about it.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point though, because that's also a good thing as you're leaving. Like there has to
Mhm.
be maybe someone that like gets you out the door.
Yeah. See, when
But-
they can smell or
It's a
something.
feeding
So
frenzy
you gotta-
going on over here.
It
I'm
is,
not
Cheryl.
even seeing a
It got
mosquito.
worse after
There's
you.
one mosquito. Natalie says it's just one.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's one mosquito.
It's just one.
All right, I'll try to
Don't worry
ignore them.
about it.
Yeah, you got to ignore them. That's why I
It's
think
hard
they'll
to
bite
ignore
me
them.
is I
They're
don't-
really going at you. They're like,
I don't
it's
know
like a
why.
swarm right
I'm
here.
watching them fly around my legs like,
They're all right here.
yeah, I'm
that
not
I
even
can
wearing
see.
shorts, you guys. They can smell me smell my blood through the
Mhm.
pants. And the fan is already at full blast, but the fan's over there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But like if I was still in Scientology, I don't think I would have listened to Anonymous. But like that's the help you need once you've left to be like, okay, you
Yeah.
have done. And I think it's all stages you need support at.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe if people are in, they wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to go straight to the SPTV Foundation. But maybe once they've made that brave decision to leave, they're like, oh, okay, then I will go to that.
For sure.
So I think
Mhm.
it's like having
Yeah.
support at multiple stages and push
Mhm.
and pull.
Yeah, enough people making it okay.
I'm
Yeah.
laughing at my own joke I'm saying to myself in my head.
What is it?
Well, it has to do when people were like, oh my God, nobody leaving Scientology would ever want to ask for help from a group called the SPTV Foundation. And I'm like,
That's
you
the
could call
first
it,
thing they're
you would
going
call it
to.
the L. Ron Hubbard Super OT Loyal Officer Foundation. No Scientologist is going to ask for help from anyone outside of Scientology leaving Scientology, no matter what it's called,
Yeah.
until they're already at a point where they don't care
Yeah.
who Scientology says is an SP.
I mean, I knew someone who went 10 years before she even looked on the internet after she left Scientology.
Yeah.
And she came on, I did an interview with her, and that was huge for her. And like
Yeah.
many people who come forward and share their stories, it's like this big step in leaving and knowing that you're not going to go back, because
Yeah.
it's hard to come back from that.
Yeah. And so this polling force or potential polling force that I'm talking
Mhm.
about that exists on YouTube wouldn't even so much be people in the bubble watching us on YouTube and be like, oh my God, I wish I could live like that.
Yeah.
But just seeing, oh my God, these not only are these the exact same people that I knew them to be in Scientology,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but they're free to say whatever the hell they want.
Yes.
They're clearly enjoying themselves and enjoying life. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
all out homeless, with needles in their veins, like Scientology says we're all going to become when we leave
Right.
Scientology or whatever.
Yeah.
And they don't have to care they don't have someone snitching on them. They don't have someone reporting on them. They don't have to, someone's not going to call them in and put them on the meter and interrogate them about what they might have said to this
Yeah.
person or that person, or what thoughts they have about David Miscavige. Like, just seeing
Mhm.
that everything's okay out there,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know?
And the
Yeah.
relief of being able to say what you really think and feel what you really
Yeah.
think, and not have to like put it through like 20 layers
Mhm.
of double speak, double think in order
Yeah.
to be okay with everything.
And realize that it's okay, that
Yeah.
it's okay to talk about it openly, and you're not going to be struck down. I remember when I first left, I still felt like, well, what if it's true what they said? What if something happens to me that I pull in or whatever? And eventually got to the point where I don't even think about it. Like if I get sick, I don't think like, oh my gosh, I'm a potential trouble source. Who's the suppressive person? You know, I haven't thought that for years.
Yeah.
I just get sick and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But you meant like the people seeing people speak on YouTube.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would be a pull just to
Yes.
see people having the freedom to talk about things.
Yeah.
Yes,
that
or
they
to think
don't
it
know.
is.
Or think, oh, it's okay. There's nothing out there.
Yeah.
There's people out there who honestly I used to know and we
Yeah.
used to be friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're still there and they're still out there and everything's fine.
It's true. And if I can gain what I would be losing, which is a community
Mm,
and people who I grew up with, then maybe I could be gaining that too.
Yeah.
The more people
Right.
who are
That's a
out
great
there.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see more people, you can have more friends. When I first left, we were doing like these former Seorg reunions.
Oh,
There were
yeah, I
some
remember that.
independent Scientologists in there, a lot of ex-Seorg people, and we would go and meet and have these parties, and it was hugely helpful because it was just being with people who left. And I think that's why cult experts like Rick Ellen Ross say that one of the most effective things to do when it comes to getting people out of a cult is to share the stories of survivors
Mm.
and show that you can not just, it's not only surviving after the cult or through it, but you can thrive.
Yeah.
And that many of us are starting to thrive. And many have been for
Yeah.
a long time.
yeah,
Is Rick
yeah.
Ross's middle name?
Alan.
Alan,
Okay, I thought you were saying Ellen. I
No,
was like,
Alan.
oh, okay.
Rick Allen Ross.
Sorry.
Actually, his
I
first
couldn't-
name, his name is Rick Helen. Rick goes by Rick for short.
Mhm. Rick,
It did sound like Rick Helen Ross. It did sound a little bit
I like that you were having it in your mind. Too.
that.
we call him Ellie for short.
Poor Natalie.
Yeah.
The chat is saying you should smoke a cigar.
The-
and that'll kill the mosquitoes.
Oh, the chat is saying if we light
We
up
need
these
more smoke.
juicy cigars,
Where's
well,
Cheryl?
for their sake, I won't light up a cigar right here. But just know that once the video is over, the mosquitoes will meet their demise or meet their match at least.
They're all going to you. I'm
So
fine.
here's a question real quick. OM22, did the Seorg make you able to cope leaving with zero? Interesting question. I didn't leave with zero, so I won't answer it based on that premise. You know, even when I left the Seorg, I had a house that had been accumulating equity for 4
Mhm.
years. I mean, I had a job experience, work history, all that kind of stuff. So I never left with zero. And even when it came time to leaving Scientology, I didn't have zero.
I left the Sea Org with zero, pretty much. Even though I'd been living, we got sent to Seattle because we refused to end my pregnancy, and we had the baby when I was in the Sea Org. But when I left, we had like nothing. We didn't have any money. I moved to Minnesota to be near my mom for that fresh start. But my mom was a very dedicated Scientologist. And that's the issue. I mean, now today we have foundations like the SPTV Foundation can help people. My only option was to return to my family who are all Scientologists.
Yeah. Right. When I left, I guess I had no credit, and I didn't have a bank account, and I didn't have a driver's license, and I didn't have a diploma, and I didn't know how to cook. And I was a little bit afraid of everybody, but I did
I
have
still don't know how to cook.
That's true. Well, but I did have, like, my parents were gone, but we lived with my ex-husband's parents,
Yeah,
who were
that's
like
right.
adamant Scientologists. And it's actually like, if you're coming out of Scientology and you like live with Scientologists, it's kind of
Mhm.
horrible.
I
It's
look like the emperor. I'm sorry. I'm gonna
the
take that
fastest
down.
way
They
to.
were really attracting the
I know.
mosquitoes.
They
I just
really
see them
do go for
swarming
you.
Who keeps putting up their
What's
thumb?
in
Is it
your
me?
blood?
Is it
Must
me?
be you. I don't think it's me.
Okay, I interrupted you. You were saying you were leaving with
Yeah, but I
nothing.
don't know what. Oh, so I kind of didn't have nothing, but I did have something. What
Well,
was
you
that
had his,
question?
you had his
Did
par-
being
you
in
had
the
his
Sea Org
parents
basically
helping.
prepare you for leaving with zero?
Oh, that's a good question. But so it seems like yes, but it also did the opposite. And the truth is that I haven't lived the other way, so I don't know like how prepared
Yeah.
other people are to deal with that.
I think the
I just-
Sea Org, if it prepares us at all or prepared us at all, it was because, or at least my Sea Org experience is you get used to living with nothing anyways. You know, I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't have a bank account. All I had was, my $47 a week.
Yeah.
And then we had to buy
Well, leaving
laundry
with
stuff.
a kid, that's
Yeah,
like a
and then I
whole
left
other
with a
level.
kid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
2
you
kids
too.
by then. Yeah.
I feel like what the Seorg experience prepared me for,
Make it go
and
right.
well, yeah, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And I only give the Seorg this credit because it's the only route that I traveled.
Right.
Is if I'm by myself,
Mhm.
alone, with nothing anywhere, I will figure out how to make it go right.
Right.
It doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be okay no matter what.
Yeah.
It actually becomes more complicated for me in my mind when there's other people involved.
Yes.
It's just like if I'm by myself, I can figure anything out. If I have to
Yeah.
worry about other people as well, I start stressing.
I totally, yeah. And that would be even scarier with kids.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't think, like, I more was like, I know I have to make it go right or else I'm a POS.
Mhm.
But I didn't leave with the knowing that I could rely on myself. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
leave
Oh
with
my
that.
God, there's so many.
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't leave
it
with
was
that
scary.
same confidence. Yeah. But I think it's like you have the same, like,
Yeah.
like he just took something different away from it because that was his
Yeah.
coping
Right.
survival mechanism. He was like, people holding on to you are like, that's a problem. And I was like, took away like, no, keep trying to hold on to people.
Mhm.
And I think it's just a different coping mechanism for the same thing.
Yeah, it makes I think, and we hear this a lot from people, that you're really resilient. Does the Sea Org make you more resilient? Yes and no. It's like almost it's in a way that we shouldn't have had to be that resilient,
Right.
especially as children. So a lot of times I'm like, okay, good, I'm resilient. So like you were saying, we can survive a lot of different things and come out on top, figure it out. But at the same time, I think for many of us, we've been doing that our entire lives. From
Yeah.
childhood, we were
Right.
taking care of ourselves.
Isn't it also kind of interesting that just because we took that away from that experience, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what everyone's going to take away from that experience as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah,
That's true,
and they
yeah.
don't. It's
Right.
not that way. Not everyone who leaves with this, a new ability to be resilient. I don't think that's the case at all.
But I do think that that's actually like a really interesting point about resilience. It's something that I was talking about lately, is that like, if you do take away one thing from Scientology, because they're like, I don't want to say there's an upside to every downside, but like the
What's
fact that
making
But you
lemonade?
can't. Yeah, you can't make
lemonade.
lemonade out of the. Wait, take lemons, make lemonade.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Well, I do think that unfortunately, when you've had like a million everyday things happen to you and you get through them, it's like you're used to being resilient.
Yeah.
It's like part of your mental habit, where if life has been easy
Mhm.
and then something bad happens, I think it can be a lot more shocking and a lot more devastating. But when you've had the experience of getting through many hard things, you do get the benefit of knowing that you will succeed, like you will come through this okay. And I do think that that's like a certain level of self-confidence that is valuable.
When you see that
And exhausting, but valuable.
people not in Scientology too, that just go through different things that were traumatic or
Exactly.
hard, even their childhoods.
Yes.
In listening to your Tim Fletcher interviews, one of my biggest takeaways from those interviews was how the resiliency that we gained, but and the independence, right, where we make lemonade out of those things. But the truth was, we never should have been put in positions to have been so resilient, or the whole make it go
That's
right
true.
in Scientology. I mean, it's like policy. It's you have to make it go right, and it's part of being a Sea Org member. Right, the duty of a Sea Org member is to do any job competently.
Well, how crazy is it that the organization literally says not having any training on how to do your job or not knowing any of the policies is no excuse for screwing up or not doing your job?
Yeah.
And you're like, I think it's an excuse.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you're told it's not, you're going to be, charged with the same crimes that someone who knew they were making a mistake. You're like, all right, that's how we're going to play this game. I guess that's how we're going to play this game.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, what do you think about this saying? I've heard this saying a lot over the last couple of years, and I'm going to slightly change it, but it's hard times make strong people make good times make weak people make hard times. Meaning if it's a circular, like now it's the reference usually is.
That sounds super
war.
depressing.
Well,
Where did you
the
hear
reference
that?
is hard times,
Yeah.
like times of war.
Yeah.
And people who go through war and survive war create very strong people who have a lot of damage,
Yeah.
but are
Character.
strong people.
Yeah.
Those the strong people create good times, meaning success, peace.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah.
Peace.
And they also
Recreates
appreciate
weak
the
people.
peace too. Like it gives you gratitude if you've been through really hard times, then you appreciate the good times.
They have right. They have that thing to compare it to, and they can appreciate it.
Yeah.
But people who were then born and raised and all they knew was the peace,
Right. They
become
don't value it
weak
much.
people.
Well, I think
And their weakness creates more bad times because they don't realize what it took to come out of those in the first place.
Right.
And so they lead
It's
you back into it.
interesting. Yeah.
I think there's a missing piece there that I could speak for myself that I had to learn. And I think that's gratitude. Because if you're really grateful and you're appreciative of what you have, whenever that is, whether it's a tough time or an easier time, we can always find something to be grateful about. And then it doesn't, I feel like then you don't take that turn because you're always so appreciative of where you are right now and the people in your life and what you're doing or the opportunities that you're so grateful for it. You're not going to take it for granted and create problems. I think that cycle exists, but I think it stops with gratitude.
Yeah, but maybe if you have hard times, you have built-in gratitude because, like, if you're living in like a hole in the ground, like you have no choice but to be grateful for the like world around you.
Yeah, or at least you have a hole or a protective hole. It's
no, you're grateful to be out of the hole.
Oh, out of the hole. I thought you you got the hole. You had just the hole.
No, that was a bad example that I was giving. But like,
I think I know I explained the concept, but it might have been more clearly. Hard times create strong people create good times create weak people create hard times.
Basically, it's a cycle.
It's a cycle.
Yeah. Like if my parents are really strict, so I'm really lax. My kids are going to be like, oh, it was too lax. I'm going to be super strict. And then the cycle goes and continues generationally.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That I think is the key to everything, whether you've been in a cult or not, is to figure out how to break that cycle. How, if you're on the coming up part of the cycle in your family or whatever it is, how do you break that so it doesn't happen again?
Yeah, and I think the trick to breaking the cycle is to not go swing so far in the opposite direction, which everyone kind of does. You can't help. So
hyper independence.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
That's like something I never recognized as being like an out point. I just thought, well, no, I'm really independent. What do you mean? There's no such thing as being too independent. Turns out there is.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
And that it's a trauma response because when you've always had to take care of everything yourself, you get really good at doing it. And then you don't.
I'm sure Aaron can relate.
You don't depend on other people, or you think you don't need to. But it's easier to lean on other people, which is something that I really learned in the last few years.
Right. It's the reverse of like codependency, which is.
Yeah, exactly. It's forcing you. And maybe with people who are hyper independent, it's I think like that's what it did for me. It just like broke me down. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to survive Tony's illness and death without leaning on people.
Yeah.
And now it's easier, right? Pick up the phone and so I think the only way we really change it is by actually changing. I think it's in generations too. We always want our kids to have a better life than we did. But if we spoil them too much, then they turn out to be little assholes. And then that's not good. So it's having that responsibility, that balance. And then how do you teach kids responsibility when this was one of my parenting struggles, when you were raised in an environment where everything was your responsibility?
Right.
Yeah. Yes, totally. Yeah.
So it's constantly a challenge, I think. That's why I don't think there's such thing as like, okay, now I'm done and totally healed from Scientology, because I don't know anyone walking around in life who's like, I've got it all figured out. I have no healing to do or anything.
Right.
I mean, we sometimes pause our healing journeys to, slap a bitch, but we get right back to it.
Where did that come from?
Sometimes you keep it aloha and sometimes you keep it real.
Metaphorically
I get it.
speaking,
Yeah,
right?
pause
Like
your healing.
you gotta pause your healing sometimes.
Who was the comedian that was like, now I won't never hit a woman, but I will shake the shit out of one. You ever see that bit?
No.
So funny.
No.
So funny.
We didn't know he was gonna make that joke.
She made a joke first. She said, slap a bitch. I said, well, I don't know,
But
slap a bitch,
I
but I will shake the shit out of one. Yeah. What? She was like, okay, too far. Okay, so there's another interesting component to this that I wanted to get people's feedback on. So because I think there is more of a pull force that could possibly bring people out of Scientology once they reach the what do they call it? What is it in a black hole? The point of no return. What is it? Guys, what's the point of no return on a black hole?
Is it not
The
point of no return?
terminal,
The event.
the event horizon. Thank you so much.
Oh my God! As if the point of no return isn't just a much better way of just saying that.
No,
I've never heard of the
Event
other
horizon.
thing.
you've never heard of the event horizon?
It's a
No.
movie.
See, that's what happens when you grow up in a cult. You know what I'm saying?
Sounds like a boring movie. I don't want to watch it.
Because there's, I think, more of a pull force than there's been in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially with
You-
the internet too.
Right.
Yeah.
Social
right.
media.
Right.
Yes.
It also like to me, just sort of logically, it means that the people who are still in there,
Mhm.
despite the greater pull force than ever,
Yeah.
are almost destined to be harder
Immune. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
eventually get out.
When I also
Yeah.
think that it's getting worse in Scientology because there's so little people left. I feel like they're just holding on tighter than they did before.
Mhm.
I mean, there was a few times when it was like, all right, who wants to leave the sea or get out? And
That's what I would always say to my
Now-
juniors. I'd be like, I don't understand. Do you want to be here? Like, leave. Why are you here? Honestly, I was like, why do I have to work so hard to get you to just follow the normal rules? If you don't want to be here, just leave.
yeah,
Yeah, anyway.
yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Okay, so you're saying, whereas before there were times where they're like, anyone who doesn't want to be here, just get out of here. You're saying now they're holding on to harder.
I feel like even with public Scientologists, things have gotten with the golden age of tech, with the ideal.org programs, the money demands have gotten so intense and the controls gotten more intense. You know, you can't even walk off the base as a Seorg member. You know, you need permission there were rules at the higher level that it sounds like have now been going down to the lower level too.
Mm.
And I think that's where it gets super culty. But it's going to end up just driving more people out and confirming their cultiness. I mean, look what's happening in front of the Hollywood Testing Center. It's a meme now to go in front of there with a camera and get them to shut the door
Yeah.
and flip the glass to be frosted.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that it is
Yeah.
because people now go over and they're doing that and raising awareness.
So this is an example of what I'm thinking of as a pull force. The fact that if Twilla or Shannon left Scientology,
Oh,
they'd be freaking celebrities.
they totally would.
They'd be instant internet stars.
Oh my God, we could start a GoFundMe for them.
There's this community out here that likes to tease them, but they're only teasing them because they're there. We actually really like them.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
know they're there. We know their families probably don't really want them there. They probably don't really want to be there. We have some empathy for them. We're having fun with them in the meantime.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think they know that if they actually left, there'd be an entire community here that would
Yeah.
celebrate and support and help them.
Yeah, and that's
Oh,
a
yeah.
big thing, making the outside more palatable and not as like you're going to lose everything.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and even if it's a combination of Scientology getting sued for its abuses, them like it being more public, all the bad things that they're doing, and then also Scientology making it a little better inside for the people who are there, or a little like I just feel like there's so many angles that Scientology that we're coming at it with,
Mhm.
that it's maybe not going to just be one thing.
No, it won't.
It's all the little things, like that it's more palatable to live on the outside,
Mhm.
that you see people who you used to know who are gone. I just think
Mhm.
that there's so many different layers. I think that's the recipe.
Yeah, and that they can't too. The number of people who are even like when they call into city council meetings and they're just anything to raise awareness that
Yeah.
hey,
Or having protesters
Scientology is a
outside.
cult.
Yeah,
Exactly,
having
making it more
signs.
difficult for them, questioning local leaders,
Yeah.
questioning their decisions to support Scientology. I don't think there's ever been as much pushback on that as there is now. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if I'm a local politician, I'm not getting anywhere near Scientology. But yet somehow
Yeah.
some do, but it's less and less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're seeing things on the news. You're seeing documentaries on Netflix. You're seeing your favorite YouTuber
Mhm.
talking about it. You're seeing people you used to know.
Viral TikTok videos. So
Yeah.
all this whole nother generation of younger people too are finding out about it. And they're just not going to fall for it. Even if their parents were in Scientology, if they see all that peer pressure
Yeah.
of like, it's not cool to be in a cult. Cults aren't cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how the dynamics of all this this whole
Mhm.
scene sort of change over time. I do think there's more of a pull force than ever before.
Yeah.
I do think in some ways they're trying to make life in Scientology easier, but the
Yeah.
statistical demands on staff members and public make that
Make it
impossible. It doesn't matter if they want to make
Mhm.
it better. It's actually not possible to
You're
make
right.
it better.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
such a good point.
It's never going to be okay in Scientology to have down stats.
Right.
No.
Period.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and for example, like if for people, instead of forcing them to have abortions, allowing them to be public
Yeah.
is actually a better financial move for them.
Right.
Anyways, that person will now pay essentially to be able to still talk to their family,
That's right.
and in many cases pay for their kids now.
That's right. And it's
in
not like that
Scientology.
Seorg member was actually making any money for Scientology anyway, unless they were
Right.
like an
Yeah.
auditor,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So honestly, canceling the RPF, in my opinion, was of financial benefit even to David Miscavige.
Right.
You can have those people do even more work now, except put them back on post and have them work more hours of the day.
Right.
Instead of only half the day, put them back on post, have them work all day,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
Kick them out of the Seorg, make them public, make them pay for Scientology,
Yeah. Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So in some ways, the things that they're doing that look like reforms are still actually, no, you guys should have done
Self-serving.
this a long time ago for the organization zone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's self-serving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It doesn't actually make life in Scientology better.
No,
Right.
and then you have
Yeah.
Seorg members who leave, like Brittany Ruiz,
Ruiz.
Ruiz,
Brittany
Brittany
Ruiz.
who
Brittany Garrett.
just make life for hell for Scientologists outside of
Yeah.
the Seorg. They're just some people are just a menace to society.
Oh, look, Club Brain Fog said the kids are doing the picture thing in front of San Francisco.
Oh,
now.
yay! Club Brain Fog, that's awesome. If you got that on video, could you email me a clip? That'd be awesome. Natalie at lifeafteraccult.com. And by the way, if you're not already subscribed, go over to Life After a Cult.
That's right. Natalie's channel is Life After a Cult.
Thank you for saying the whole name. I've been telling him. He's always like, Natalie. I'm like, you can't search Natalie on YouTube. Life After a Cult.
And so as far as the whole, the orgs are always going to be under the same amount of pressure to keep their stats up. Right?
Yes.
That's even more true now that they're actually sending back more and more of these brand newly trained command teams.
Yeah.
You can't send back brand new, fully trained executive command teams to all the orgs and be like, yeah, but we don't care if the orgs keep their stats up. Just send everyone to Clearwater. We're gonna consolidate Clearwater and abandon everywhere else. It drives me crazy when people say that. I don't know where they're getting it from.
Not to mention how that looks. Like, look at San Francisco. You send back this whole command team. They win the birthday game.
Yeah.
Yet you never see anybody coming and going from the org.
Yeah.
How bad is it for everybody else in
Yeah.
San Francisco where Club Brain Fog, you see her out there, and she would say too, I think, you hardly see people coming and going from the org.
Exactly.
How'd they win the birthday game? They had to win the birthday game because they were, the big trained team that went back. So
Yeah.
how convenient that they go back and win the birthday game. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's so fabricated, I think, at this point.
Mhm.
The pretending of expansion. It's like the walls are starting to crumble. Like people can see
Yeah.
it's like North Korea.
And the longer there's no OT 9 and 10,
Mhm.
like the more shady that becomes. And like the longer you've been in there and you really haven't like exteriorized from your body,
yeah.
or like
Or gone clear even.
size. Yeah.
That's a
totally.
thing I think that's really valid for people is when you remind them, how long have you been in Scientology? How far have you gotten on Scientology's bridge? Most, not very far.
Is it buffering? Or are we good?
Now, someone said it wasn't clear, but it looks clear here.
Oh,
Look,
maybe they mean
That's
our
okay.
talking's not
There's
clear.
the signal's a little weak. What?
It looks a little buffery.
A little pixelated?
Yeah.
That's okay. The signal's not super strong right now.
There you go.
and it goes up and down, like the internet will suddenly shut off.
Yeah. That's okay. It's mostly in.
Every video I've done so far has ended because the internet shut
Yeah.
off.
But you were like walking down the street.
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
That one I didn't have signal.
So the last one I wanted to touch on, you sort of mentioned it a moment ago, was the lawsuits.
Yeah.
And up until now, there've been isolated individuals suing Scientology for this or suing Scientology for that. Two of those lawsuits are going well and moving forward. Pretty much every other one of those lawsuits is stalled and failing. The Andrews and Thornton law firm coming forward, a firm that already has all the experience
Mhm.
anybody could ever hope for in doing mass torts against massive religious organizations, is something that's never happened before.
No.
And I have truly been wondering whether, as more and more ex-Scientologists promote this constantly on their channels, that this is for real. These are people you can go and talk to if you have any question about whether you have a case, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, sexual abuse. These are the people that you talk to.
Mhm.
And if you have a case, they're going to bring one for you.
Yeah.
Is this legitimately a new force that could actually pull people out of Scientology to participate in something like this?
Oh yeah, I think it is, because I think part of the issue when you're leaving Scientology, and especially when it comes to SA, is it's so covered up. You're so indoctrinated to cover it up, and if you see people actually taking action, I think it might inspire them to like, wow, look, it actually, even so, I mean, I've been out for 15 years and I can't believe Scientology still exists as it does. I'm like, when I look back and I watch some of the older interviews and footage of like Jesse Prince and Tori Magoo back in the day, and even before then, you know, like John Atack. I mean, you just go back further and further and further, Hannah Whitfield, and all of these people who brought forth the truth about Scientology, yet it still continued on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never been like this, where there's been social media, there's people showing up in person, there's people outside orgs, all of that. I think they're going to try and tighten the grip so tightly on Scientologists that more people are going to leave.
Yeah, I think that this new wave of lawsuits, I think that what will make it a big deal too is the amount of information that we are learning from the lawyers of things that maybe we as ex-Scientologists can explain are actually SA that we actually never knew were.
Yeah, you and I have had a conversation about that.
And
But
hearing this explained from other people who have gone through certain things that seem like nothing to us. Like if you weren't like fully like ARD, but you still think that maybe you haven't experienced SA, there's actually many things like being made as a kid to confess certain personal things about yourself while on camera, while in a locked room without your parents present, having it being written down. There's things like this that are actually SA that nobody would have thought about.
I never, until you said, we were on the phone and you said they recorded me while asking me questions about sex and inappropriate questions.
Yeah.
Well, as a child,
minor,
that's like child porn.
In a locked room, you can't get out.
I was trying not to say the word. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Grooming.
Yes.
Grooming.
Yeah.
But
Like,
it's
I never
also
thought about
really traumatizing for you to be forced to tell this to an adult. So it's like, let's put it in the context of like a confession box, right? Now imagine that the person, what is the person who's in the box?
The priest.
Priest. Okay, I don't know the difference between. Anyways, the priest was like, you have to come confess. That doesn't happen in the Catholic. Well, maybe it does, but it's first like
I don't think, does it? Catholics?
it's like
Catholics.
Former Catholics?
in Scientology.
In
it's
confession, are you ever ordered to confession? You have to go to.
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay.
how?
You're supposed to confess every week.
What, ordered by your parents or by?
By the
Okay, by your
priest.
parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
But does the church say you have to go to confession now or else blah?
Well, it's highly recommended, and
Right.
it's pushed that way. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But even your parents, like my parents were 3,000 miles away, and so they're saying you have to come confess. And then now imagine the priest asked you questions about what you did.
Details.
Yeah.
That's
Now
what they
imagine
don't
there
have.
was a video recorder in the box.
Mhm.
Now imagine that he strapped you to a lie detector, and
Yeah.
when you said no, I didn't do that, they wouldn't take no for an answer.
No, they say, what's that?
Yeah. Now imagine he wrote it down and sent it to different people. Like it's just like,
Who all read it.
yes, who all read it and gossip about it to each other.
Mhm.
Now imagine that you have consequences like half pay or half meal times, and you have to make amends for the things that you said, even if they're not actually bad.
Mhm. Or you were the victim.
Yeah. So it's not just like an innocent confession. It's actually like,
Yeah.
And
It's abuse.
I didn't think
abuse.
it's abuse.
I
yeah.
didn't see it that I didn't think about it that way until Jenna said that. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, when I was 15 and I had a boyfriend and then was grilled on what we did in detail. And then I
For
didn't even
how
think about the
long?
fact that he was in his 20s and I
Yeah.
was 15, 16.
Yeah. Right. And that's just one example. Or
Yeah.
how in Scientology, it's like if there's an older man who has his attention on you, you as a child, or you as a woman, even because they talk about gender violence,
Mhm.
this law, like, what did you do to make this happen?
Yeah. What did
And,
you
like,
do?
Yeah. So there's so many things like that, so many variations of this that are actually SA and are
Mhm.
actually like insane that I haven't
Yeah,
even
you're
thought
not
of
allowed.
until 25 years later because I didn't know any different.
Hmm.
And even if I have had like my own kids, there's certain things I've been able to put in perspective and certain things I haven't and have had to like block out. And so I think that like having those lawyers who are willing to
Mhm.
take up those cases, but also getting educated in us, like maybe like them hearing that from people who they know were there, who know what happens in Scientology. I think that maybe that educational
Yeah.
step too would be really helpful and make a big difference.
Yeah. And if we didn't know, we didn't see some of those things as like, that didn't come to mind for me. Like my actual essay came to mind. But until you and I talked about it, I was like, oh my gosh, how
Yeah.
many times as a child did they interrogate me about sexual things?
Yes. Yeah.
And then even having relationships with a man who was in his 20s when I was 16. And that wasn't the problem.
Right.
The problem was that he was a Seorg member. It
Yeah.
wasn't that he was
And it was
an
your
adult.
fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Jenna, the chat is asking about what brought you to the point about having to bite somebody.
Oh.
They want you to retell that story.
Um,
I've got to think that something led up to that, that caused you to have that kind of reaction. Or
Well, they wouldn't let her out of the room.
right.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
someone's asking about it in the chat.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even a kid at that point, but I also wasn't there voluntarily. Like
Yeah.
at the beginning of every session, they say, is there any reason not to start the session? And I would routinely be like, yeah, I don't want to. And they would do it anyways. And then they would have the video camera on. And I'd be like, I don't want the video camera on. And they'd be like, well, too bad. Or sometimes they would put a blanket over it and I'd be like, you can still see me. And then they would be like, okay, well, I'm gonna keep it on. And so then I would try to leave. Anyways, so basically I was trying to leave
And they
auditing
stopped you.
room, but it was a confessional. So it's hard to explain, like, I'm not auditing you. Like basically there's some
The same
confessionals
rules don't apply.
Yeah, some confessionals are like for investigative purposes. So you're not like getting forgiven for anything.
Yeah.
So anyways, so
You're
Well,
being
that's one
interrogated.
thing that makes Scientology, their confessional procedure, different than like Catholic confession, for example.
right.
Is
It's
in
not
Scientology,
confidential.
there are two different types of confession.
Right.
There's ones that are being done just for the sake of making you feel better, and no one has any idea what you're going to talk about in that session, and you're not going to get in trouble for anything you talk about in that session. Thank you. And then there's the other confessional, which is being done for investigative justice purposes, and that is the type of stuff that they essentially read you your Scientology Miranda rights. Everything you say will be used against
And
you.
you have to make amends
And
for it. It gets
you
reported
do not
on.
have the right to plead the fifth.
Yes, yeah. Which is
They
all
write
that I ever
reports.
got.
Yes,
all that I ever
that's
got.
right.
And that's all that most people get unless they're paying public. So
Exactly.
Seorg members are basically getting
Yes.
like ones where
Interrogated.
You do
where
not
you
have
get
the right to
punished
remain
for
silent,
Yeah.
but anything you say will be used against you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, you will not be
And then it
provided an attorney.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was like kind of I was being made to do that. And then I wanted to leave the room. I said I wanted to go to the bathroom. They wouldn't let me out. And then so I stepped on the cans. I crushed the cans so that because you have to have a certain size cans. So I mean, I guess they could have gotten a new pair from next door, but that would require them opening the door. So and then they just wouldn't let me out. And so we were like fighting and pushing, and I threw my auditing folder like up in the air, and then like she was holding me, and then I just wound up like biting her arm.
And this was Silka Peens?
Yeah.
And she married who? Max Minkoff?
Mm-hmm.
So this is David Minkoff's daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
This is Dr. David Minkoff's daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
This is Rebecca Minkoff's sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jenna Miscavige bit Rebecca Minkoff's sister-in-law.
Yeah. And I got punished because I disturbed all the sessions in the hallway, which is like a high crime in
crime.
Scientology. Yeah. And then I ran down the back stairwell through the fire, and there was a guy who was like racing me from the bottom to get me there, and I literally
Oh
just
my
pushed the
gosh.
door open like 5 seconds before he got there. And then I was like walking down the street and someone was following me, and I was like,
Was Tom Cruise?
leave me alone.
Was Tom Cruise in this action movie you just described?
No. Yeah. But I did my own stunts.
So they had to put your whole PC folder back together after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had a lot of PC folders. I had a lot of sec checks.
Yeah.
Like I had at least 20.
Yeah.
Or more. Yeah. More
I feel like
signs of
all
no
of my
case
sec
finding.
checks were things that just inadvertently came out of correction lists.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They didn't have enough resources just to sec check a random out of org trainee or anything like that. You know?
Yeah.
But it still ended up being most of the auditing I remember.
Mm.
You know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like for staff, that's most of the auditing they get.
Right.
I got to audit my alien space cooties.
Oh, when you're a public. Yeah.
I was a public though.
Yeah.
Okay, last question here. This is from earlier, OM22. Do either of you still believe in the fundamentals? So if you had not been abused, do you believe in the theory? Oh, sorry, believe in the theory.
No,
No.
for me.
Yeah, me neither.
Nope.
I mean, there's some things that are like potentially universally true.
Yeah,
that are
because they're
just, like,
universal truths.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look up a word if you don't know what it means. You probably need
Exactly.
to know what the words mean.
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, there's just so many things that L. Ron Hubbard kind of took and put into Scientology that are just sort of basic, obvious truths that they don't even deserve to really be called Scientology.
Right. Exactly. And he even repackages them secularly and says they have nothing to do with Scientology, which like for Wyatts and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like,
The mosquitoes are getting to be a little bit more than I can comfortably and easily take. But this has been a wonderful chat.
Yes.
Anything?
Yeah.
Are you guys happy with it?
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
I'm happy with that.
Fantastic.
Finish my integration.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. I think I've got my outro here.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.